So this is my space. I have a few of my favorite things here. My guitar, I started playing when I was 15. My mom got into guitar, and then I started to play her guitar in my room, and started to wish I wish I could sing to the songs, and then I realized I could. No one was stopping me, except my own embarrassment or lack of confidence. I didn't want to look stupid, and I don't know. But anyways, I eventually decided to secretly write a song in my room, and I kind of whisper it, and then I was like, imagine if it was serious. Like, imagine if it was not just like lyrics that I write because, like a bird in the sky, like a little lesson or some like slightly distanced composition of words to make up a song. I was like, well, what if it like was the message I actually want to say? And I remember feeling that and realizing that music was that for me. I'm realizing this now, but it was a way to export my feelings and my emotions, my vulnerabilities, just energy, all kinds of things. But I started to get into it, and I was learning guitar for the sake of being able to express myself poetically. I was learning the voice and the guitar for that. I wasn't thinking about my voice being good. I was thinking about the message coming across good through my voice. And even guitar, I'm still kind of on the same, like, 6 chords or whatever. But I like to write. And so I played from, like, 15 to 17 and then 20, 24 or 25 to now. And lots of space from the last 5 years, because I'm 30 now. But yeah, one of my favorite things is the guitar, and I've always chose the Martin like minis. I had the Ed Sheeran one with the like division sign here, and then I got this one. I left my other one in Hawaii with a friend, and all of a sudden I went back a few years later, and some hippie like painted all over it and left it in the sun. It was a very special guitar to me, but it was kind of silly. Like, it's a special guitar, but I just kind of felt bad for the thing to be like a broken piece of trash out in the yard with looked like nail gloss paint all over it. But this one I'm enjoying. I do like the sound of bigger guitars, but I just move around so much that I like the small little jammer. Yeah. And then the computer. I love the computer. I like the big screen. Is it 13 inch or 16 inch? I don't know. "16" Yeah, pretty good one. And I like all the tools I have on it. And a year ago, I didn't like Notion. I just wasn't sold on it. And my experience was building basic like company wikis, and they hadn't really gotten down the database stuff in the beginning. And then I didn't like the way that they shared. Like, if you need to share a page with someone, they have to like switch workspaces to go to that page. I feel like that's really clunky. That's what one of those things Typo solves is your profile, and you have access to pages shared with you, and you have pages you're sharing with others, and then you just have your profile nebula and your private docs nebula, and you're good to go. You can move around. So yeah, but I wasn't sold on Notion, and then I built a second brain, and I was like, okay, this is amazing. And I looked at all the second brains out there, and I was just like, One of my friends, John, who's a Stoic, he's just a Stoic philosopher, and he studies Stoicism, and he's very well spoken and articulated, and yeah, great friend, great therapist, great teacher. But he was like, I'm surprised you don't use Notion. And I was like, it's just, the way the blocks work and the way it just kind of feels, I don't know. And I hadn't really given it a full chance, but I was just kind of shutting it down. Like, I use Milanote and ClickUp and Docs and Google Sheets and Day One Journal. Like, I'm good. I got my systems. But then I was like, well, let me look at the Second Brain template he sent me. And it's the most popular one. It's called Ultimate Brain. And I looked at it, and it was so linear. It was like, you go to your very first page, your command center of your brain, and in the front view of your command center is recipes. And I'm like, that's not how my brain works. And then I just see all these things that are like, look like in my face. If I was to like command the ship of my life, I don't feel like I would want to see it this way. And so I started moving stuff around and looking through a few other ones, like Second Brain by Easlow. I think that's pretty much it. The rest of them are pretty low grade. But I just took the pieces I liked about them and then made my own. I think that it's not for everyone, and just because the Second Brain template is there and you can adopt it, you're still supposed to move stuff around. You're still supposed to adjust things. But anyways, Mastery OS worked for me and ended up getting really high on the Second Brain, like keywords on Notion. My Docs was like number one after Notion's like default Docs template. And then I started charging money for them, which was cool at first, but then I just slowly started to get degraded on the suggested, because it's about, their algorithm is based on the most recent downloads in the past 7 days or something like that, based on my predictions. And so I was like, I'd rather be free and be at the top than cost money and slowly degrade to being not even exposed. And so I made them all free. And then I also was just like, my long-term vision, I don't really want to sell templates. At least these, like, I feel like the systems are giving me value, and I want to build an app and invent things. And so made them free and just focused on typo. And that was nice because I just stopped like thinking about it. And now I have a really big email list of, tens of thousands of people that I can say, hey, if you like Notion, typo's pretty cool. I don't think it's very like potent email list. Like, they're not following me. They're just like, they found my template and downloaded it. So we're still strangers, very much so. And I imagine like there'll be a high unsubscription rate, but I've sent out 2 emails and sent, I think I sent it to 7,000 people last week, and I got like 30 to 40% open rate, and like a dozen people joined typo. I don't know how good that is. I feel like that's pretty bad, but it's definitely something to play with. So yeah, this week I've spent a decent amount of time learning about email flows and automations, and it's not really my like interest. I don't really like ads and marketing and stuff, at least not yet. But I have to learn it. The same way I used to not like coding, but I had to learn it. And yeah, I was against Notion, and now I like Notion. And I was against Slack, and now I like Slack. And I automate all the tasks in our workspace. Anytime a task status is set to done, it pings the chat to the respective division of that project. So like dev chat, design chat, operations chat. So that's cool. I love Arc browser because of the tabs and the way it sorts and the way it shortcuts. And then Dia is their new browser, and they're slowly catching up on the features, but it's still not quite the same. My friend made a typo today, which was cool of her and cool to see her experience what the tool's all about. And I studied Benjamin Franklin today. I finished that documentary. And I did yard work briefly. And Justin Bieber's new album, I liked the first song on it, and I was showing my friend I could use Spotify links here. So anyways, I don't know, I guess you could see that good. So that's one. I love my computer. And then whiteboards and notepads, I absolutely love. And I realize every time you write on a paper or draw on a whiteboard, always put your date in the same general place. It makes things way easier for sorting and just like batching and holding space for that day, which can be returned to. And also it just helps you realize all of this was done on this date and it needs to get exported in these ways. And I can kind of backtrack, like, when did I write that? Oh, that was there. And so I can look in things around that date to find things. And it's also just nice because time goes by and, you know, eventually it'll be 2040 and we'll be like, oh, remember back in 25 when this happened? Or look at my drawing skills back then. You can see I didn't understand how to do legs very well. Stuff like that, you know. And I'll show you. I take photos of them, and let me get my phone. And then I'll put them inside of my journal for that day. So that way it never gets lost, because you gotta erase stuff, you know? And so I make sure to load all this into my journal digitally and make sure it's distributed to where it needs to go. Like, these are tasks, these are things to do. Kind of log where I'm at, what's on my plate, what I'm thinking. And I'm doing another one, so I'm gonna leave the date because it's still that date. And sometimes I'll approach the whiteboard and not know what I'm gonna do. I just know I'm craving productivity, organization, clarity, or creativity. Sometimes I have a specific problem I'm trying to solve, or a specific like theme. So let's say the theme is I'm trying to get to look ahead a bit. So I do what I call a path. And so I draw a horizon, and then I draw a path heading towards this horizon, and then I divide it by basically what I'm trying to look at. And usually I do this for looking like 6 months to a year ahead. But you could do it for a week and do 7 days. You could do 3 days. You could do, 3 weeks, whatever you want to do. But let's just say, so right now it's, 2/3 of the way done with July, so we'll just do a smaller line. And then we'll do August, September, October, November, December. So then I write out the months on one side: July, August, September, October, November, December. So then there's January. I know I'm having a kid at the end of January. So baby number 2. So I start to give like pins and like add some tangibility to this timeline. So I know I'm turning 31 here at the end of the month, and Ken is turning 30. I know that I'm going the last week of September for 2 or 3 weeks. So I do this little doily like thing. It's a terrible one, but I'm going to Texas, Utah, Cali, and I want to have my brothers out right here, let's say, bros visit. And so work-wise, I would say, okay, well, I need to raise money in the next 2 months. And so let's make that even shorter. Let's do the next month and a week. Raise, let's say $100,000. I need to raise $100,000 in 5 weeks. So that starts to give you this tangible like roadmap where you're like, oh, it's coming up. You know, when you look at time on a calendar, it doesn't feel quite as real. Like, in what point in your life is this how you look ahead? You know, to me, I feel like this looks more like dimensional. Like, it looks more like you're in the world. And so sometimes it's nice stepping away from this, being like, you know, there's this big due date, you know, right here. And then deadline. To me, I'd rather see it this way. But I do look at my calendar sometimes, but visually and for the sake of making a point. Anyways, I digress. So I need to make money in this amount of time. So there's a big deadline. My developer gets back from his trip right around here. Dev back online. I don't call him Dev, but I'm just going to call him Dev for this video. So I know we need to start developing there, and I can kind of see like, okay, what do I need to do to support that raise? There's specific like growth metrics relating to creators and relating to outreach and onboarding. And the outreach is for both creators and investors. But for me, I'd rather build my metrics and build my stability and kind of more assurance, because I built a big Web3 company and I ended up, you know, building this huge company and just driving it until it ran out of cash, and trying to build all of these things, very disorganized, very like misaligned team, and it was, you know, Web3, so it crashed. We raised almost $6 million and we did a big NFT project, but to just maintain the liquidity pools and the marketing and then hiring all these people, and everyone's overcharging and everyone's selling and everyone's, you know, trying to make you dependable, as a contractor naturally is inclined to do. And so we were just like in so many different pots and with so many different commitments, and then, you know, everyone was living this like Web3 lifestyle, including myself, and so it was hard to like leave that. And it's funny because one of my clients, I've been witnessing them burn through $30 million the same way, and I was proposing a pivot where they acquired Typo and we built this like front end interface for AI. He loved it, but his team didn't. And again, it's just this like, why would we change things? This is working for my current lifestyle. Last time I spoke to them, he's very aware that his company's probably going to fail. So just kind of strange world to be in, but I was in that world a bit. And so when I come out of it, now I'm like, okay, I need to raise money, but this time let me make sure the product works and let me make sure people love it, and let me make sure that we have all the pieces together before we go and just take money and just like reduce the risk a bit. But now I'm to the point where like, if I could just sustain myself for 6 more months, I feel pretty confident we'll be in a really really good position leverage-wise. And so I'm trying to piece together the right middle ground to get there without handing too much risk to investors, but also understanding that they're taking the risk because the upside is worth the risk. So yeah, working through that. But anyways, this one's really helpful for time and looking ahead and then starting to realize what you're trying to do and when, and work backwards to create tasks. And then whenever I'm trying to think of lists of things to get done, I'll just, like, as they come up, I'll write them somewhere over here, and I'll either title it or it'll just be like a bullet list. And it could be like checkbox related if it's like a thing to do, or a bullet point if it's just a thing to remember or keep in mind. Or it could be like a light bulb if it's just an idea to consider. It's kind of like a rich text editor. Like you could do like the quote, you can do headers, you can do paragraph. It's the same thing. So I do that over there. But this I only pull out like a couple times a month. I've been doing it a lot lately because I've been trying to really get clarity on where I'm at and where I'm going. And the goal is to build a timeline view of database in Typo that does this, where you can kind of zoom in and out of time and pin tasks. So instead of seeing something like a timeline based, which we'll also have, where like this is the time, this is timeline view on Notion, or other apps, this will be the other way to do it, which I'm really excited about. And I've had that idea since 2020. And I called it Path. I also have another Path phrase that I work with. More on the like, oh shit. More on the like personal philosophical end. There's the path continuum. Continuum. And it's essentially the infinity sign. And you have PATH on all sides, both sides. And one is what you're doing, and one is basically what you're being. And they support each other, because if you're being in a certain state, it allows you to do in a better state. And if you do in a better state, you be in a better state. And so doing practices, so what you're doing, like to maintain and progress, ambitions. So what are your goals? What are you looking ahead for? What's your vision? Tasks and habits. So it's kind of like the different things that you do on autopilot, intentionally, consciously, subconsciously. And then purpose on the other end. Awareness. Tranquility. And healing. These are the things that we're seeking to be better versions of. We want to be more purposeful, more aware, more at peace, and more healthy. And so sometimes I come back to this to sort of anchor me in to what am I doing and why? It's like, well, I'm doing these things for these reasons, and these things help do these things better. And this is the value of whiteboards and drawing, is like you start to create these little mental models for yourself that incorporate into your goals, into your philosophies, into your products, into your brand, into your stories. So that's that. And another thing I'll do, if I'm trying to understand who I'm trying to become, I'll draw myself. So give me a second. Try to give myself a little bit of a jawline, but not too much. It's like, I want myself to look handsome, but I don't want to look the Hulk. So then I'll draw myself, and I'm not super good at arms. And I'll draw myself either standing up, or this is a nice little cheat code. I just draw myself in the lotus position on a circle rug. And I'm sitting there kind of like, what's on my plate? Who am I? If I was to look at myself in 10 years, 15 years, maybe I'd give myself some facial hair. So, I'm 45. What have I accomplished? Or what does life look like in 6 months? Or tonight, So I start to kind of see myself as like a higher version of myself. I'm chilling. I'm in like my Buddha position, and I'm like, whoa, what have I accomplished in life? And then maybe I'll write out the different projects I have. This is, this can go so many ways. Sometimes it's this, and then I just write my to-do list for the day. But in this case, I'm just looking at the projects that I've kind of been juggling lately over the recent months, and Teka is my lab and my campus that develops myself as well as the work I do. Typo's the first project, so it's my venture within the lab. And Typo basically allows anyone to create a workspace and a hub and a home base digitally, socially, all in one place. TYBK is my music, stands for the Young Boy King. And then NAQF is Not a Quick Fix, which is the book and the whole philosophy I've been working with over the last year or two, is I think 2 years, is like you're stagnant and frustrated because you're not being honest with yourself, and you're seeking quick fixes to beat around the bush and to procrastinate and to basically feed these vices and distract yourself from the truth. And so I'm learning this for myself as I'm teaching it and like compiling it. So yeah, this is what's on my plate, and that helps me. Sometimes if I'm feeling like super vibes, I'll draw like a halo. Or maybe a rainbow. But yeah, so those are just some mental models I use to jam and see from a different lens. It's good to switch it up, to be like in the digital Notion Typo world, to be on the whiteboards. I also have like a little notepad I keep with me. But yeah, those are the tools I use to brainstorm. And yeah, it's been fun to show you. Okay, love you.